We're jumping straight into Unity software today. Everyone is watching the price action, but the real story is their burn-the-boat strategy to become a high-margin AI utility. Just looking at the setup, it's wild. We had this massive, just brutal 60% drawdown. It felt like everyone had given up. And then, bam, a violent reversal with a 13% single-day surge on triple the average volume, over 53.95 million shares traded.
Exactly. You're tuned into the Easy Money Show, where we make sense of the market's biggest moves. I'm glad you're with us.
Yeah, and before we get too deep into the weeds, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Our mission here is really just to take these complex financial narratives and, simplify them into actionable insights for you. So, about this turnaround, I was trying to think of the best way to visualize it.
Right, because it's a massive shift.
It really is. It's like, imagine realizing your house is just packed to the ceiling with absolute junk. Like you're a hoarder, basically.
Yeah, we've all seen those shows.
Right. So you finally decide it's time to clean it out. You spend weeks dragging these heavy bags of garbage to the curb. But then, as you're clearing out the back of the garage, buried under a pile of old cardboard boxes, you find the keys to a pristine, high-performance Ferrari.
Wow. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, you didn't have to go out and buy a new car. You just had to aggressively clear out the trash to realize the value of what you already owned.
That is honestly probably the most accurate way to visualize the exact scenario unfolding with the company right now. Because for years, they were kind of the poster child for the zero interest rate tech era.
Oh, totally. Growth at all costs.
Exactly. Your operating model was basically just acquiring pieces left and right, acting like this bloated conglomerate. They were trying to be the entire ecosystem for mobile and gaming developers, which, works fine when capital is virtually free.
Right. But when the macro environment tightens up, that complex structure just becomes this massive liability.
It does. And management realized this. What we're seeing now is a very intentional and honestly a highly painful self-help turnaround. They are aggressively shutting down their legacy commoditized assets. Specifically, they're turning off older ad networks like ironSource.
And that's the part that I think trips people up. Because if they are dropping a massive piece of their business like ironSource, they're essentially just walking away from top-line revenue.
Yeah, which sounds crazy on paper.
Right. If you just read a headline, that sounds terrible for a software company. But mathematically, if ironSource was this low-margin drag on the business, shedding it should actually make their overall profit margins spike, right? Are they actively choosing to shrink their footprint so they can become drastically more profitable?
That is the exact strategy at play. And the preliminary first quarter 2026 numbers, well, they completely validate that it's working. They are projecting first quarter revenue to come in somewhere between $505 million and $508 million.
And what were the estimates before that?
Wall Street had them pegged way down around $480 million to $490 million. So they didn't just meet expectations, they crushed the consensus.
Man, that's huge. And the driver of that beat is the Ferrari we were talking about, right? Their AI ad platform, Unity Vector.
Exactly, that's the Ferrari. Unity Vector grew an astounding 78% year over year.
78%? That's insane for a company of this size.
It really is. Think about how difficult it is to move the needle on a massive ship like this. And this one specific segment is pacing toward a $1 billion annual run rate by late 2026.
Which is just staggering.
Yeah, and alongside that, the foundational piece of their business, the Create segment, which is the actual game engine developers use, that showed incredible resilience too. It grew 16% year over year in the previous quarter.
It is a solid number on its own.
It is.
Yeah.
That represents its fastest pace of growth in over 2 years.
Okay, but this brings up a really crucial question for me regarding the actual mechanics of what they are doing. Why does killing off the legacy ironSource network and relying on this proprietary data make Unity so powerful in a privacy-first post-cookie world?
That is the million-dollar question right there. To understand it, we have to look at how digital advertising has, traditionally operated. For years, the whole industry relied on third-party cookies.
Right. Tracking people everywhere.
Yeah. Think of the old ad model, like putting up a massive billboard on a busy highway. You put it up and you just hope the right demographic happens to drive by.
Yeah.
Ad networks would track you across the web from a shoe store to a news site, piecing together your habits.
But then all these privacy regulations hit and Apple changes their rules and suddenly the highway is completely fogged up.
Exactly. Advertisers can't track that cross-site behavior anymore.
Huh.
The third-party cookie is effectively dying, which means traditional ad networks are basically flying blind. They can't see the user.
But Unity Vector doesn't rely on cookies, right? It operates as a walled garden.
Precisely. They don't need to track you across the broader internet because they actually own the environment where you're spending your time. Because their create segment powers the underlying physics and environment of the games people play. They have this distinct structural advantage.
So instead of a billboard on a highway hoping you drive by, Unity Vector is it's more like a personal shopper who already knows exactly what is in your closet because they literally built the closet you're standing in.
Oh, that is a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
Yes.
Because they power the game engine, they have access to highly accurate, privacy-compliant runtime data.
So they know everything happening inside the game.
Every single thing. They know exactly how a player interacts with the digital environment, what choices they make, how long they engage with certain elements on the screen, and they feed that proprietary behavioral data directly into their AI network vector.
To target ads with incredible precision.
Right, entirely bypassing the need for web cookies.
Which totally explains that 78% growth rate. They essentially have a cheat code. They're offering advertisers surgical precision in a market where everyone else is suddenly wearing blindfolds.
Yeah, and by dropping the legacy iron source network, they eliminate the distraction. They can focus purely on scaling this highly profitable AI utility, and the impact on the bottom line is undeniable.
Let's talk about the bottom line, actually, because the profit margins are what really caught my eye.
Yeah, let's look at adjusted EBITDA, which, for anyone listening, is essentially the cash profit generated from their core operations. Management guided for first quarter adjusted EBITDA to jump to a range of $130 million to $135 million.
And the previous estimate was, what, hovering around $100 million?
Yeah, analysts had it sitting way down at $105 million to $110 million.
That is a massive operational leap.
It is. In percentage terms, this puts their profit margins at 26%. It proves that this leaner, highly focused model is actually operationalizing efficiency. And analysts are projecting that as the high-margin vector platform scales up, we could see those margins expand even further, hitting somewhere between 27% and 30% by the end of 2026.
So the internal engine is clearly running hot. It's getting much more efficient. But, a turnaround story is only as good as the runway the company has to actually execute it.
Absolutely.
If you are overhauling your entire business model, you need serious cash reserves to weather the storm. So looking through their financials, how safe is the actual foundation while they pull off this pivot?
I'd say the financial armor they've built is formidable. As of the end of 2025, they were sitting on $2.06 billion in cash. But the real masterstroke was how they proactively handled their debt profile.
Oh, the convertible notes.
Yeah. They recently refinanced their 2026 convertible notes, pushing the maturity date all the way out to 2030.
Let's break that down for a second, because refinancing convertible notes sounds like dense Wall Street jargon. Essentially, a convertible note is just a loan that can eventually turn into company stock, right?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
So by pushing that maturity date back 4 full years, what are they actually achieving for the health of the company?
They're buying crucial peace of mind and operational flexibility. I mean, if that massive debt bill came due in 2026, right in the middle of this delicate turnaround phase, they might have had to drain their cash reserves to pay it off.
Or issue new stock, which dilutes the current shareholders.
Exactly. Pushing it to 2030 completely kills any immediate solvency fears. They have the breathing room required to let Vector grow.
And there's another massive capital injection on the horizon too, right? The expected sale of their China division.
Yes. That divestiture alone is projected to bring in a windfall exceeding $1 billion.
Which is huge. In today's market, where interest rates are high and borrowing money is incredibly expensive, having a sudden, fresh $1 billion in cash is a massive competitive weapon.
It really is.
Yeah.
They can use that to aggressively buy back their own stock or potentially acquire new AI technologies to make Vector even smarter.
And institutional money is definitely calculating the value of that weapon. We've seen value funds start stepping in, basically treating the $20 to $22 range as a hard floor for the stock.
Right, and when value funds who are notoriously conservative investors, when they start nibbling at a turnaround play, it usually indicates that the fundamental downside risk has been priced in.
Yeah. Morgan Stanley even raised their price target to $32, specifically citing the strong first quarter results and the ongoing margin expansion. Which brings us back to that violent 13% single-day price surge we talked about at the top of the show.
Yeah, the volume on that was crazy.
Right. And there's a very specific market mechanic driving that velocity. It's not just new buyers discovering the stock, it's short sellers desperately trying to get out of a bad bet.
Oh, absolutely. Short sellers operate by borrowing shares and selling them, hoping the price drops so they can buy them back cheaper. When the stock was circling the drain around its 52-week low of $15.33, a lot of traders piled into short positions.
They were betting the turnaround would fail.
Exactly. But when these massive preliminary numbers came out showing the burn-the-boat strategy is visibly working, those short sellers got trapped.
They suddenly had to buy the stock back at a higher price just to stop the bleeding.
Yep, and that forced panic buying creates a feedback loop, adding aggressive fuel to the upward price action. That is the classic mechanic of a short squeeze. And what's crucial for anyone tracking the technical charts is the relative strength index, or RSI.
Right, the RSI.
Right now, even with the stock trading around $20.54, the RSI is sitting right around 44.44.
And for those unfamiliar with the metric, the RSI is a momentum oscillator. It basically measures the speed and change of price movements on a scale from 0 to 100. So usually anything above 70 means a stock is overbought, and anything under 30 means it's oversold.
Exactly. So an RSI of 44.44 is completely neutral. It tells us that despite that explosive 13% surge, the stock hasn't hit that overheated territory yet. From a purely technical standpoint, the momentum has room to continue upward without fighting immediate buyer exhaustion.
Okay, so the market is betting heavily on this new walled garden, the balance sheet is fortified, and the technicals look clean. But looking at the flip side, there has to be a catch.
There's always a catch.
Right, because overhauling your entire revenue model is rarely a perfectly smooth process. You're effectively ripping out the plumbing of a skyscraper while people are still trying to live in it. What happens if the adoption of Unity Vector stalls out before hitting that $1 billion run rate?
That represents the execution risk, and it is undoubtedly the single biggest threat to the bull thesis we've laid out. Management is promising developers that Vector's AI targeting is vastly superior. But if they stumble during the integration, if the targeting isn't actually as surgical as they claim, or if the developer dashboard is a clunky, frustrating mess, they have a massive problem on their hands.
Because they aren't operating in a vacuum. The developers using the engine to build their games don't magically have to use the ad network to monetize them.
They don't.
Yeah.
And that brings a company called AppLovin into the conversation.
Yeah. AppLovin.
AppLovin is a fierce, established competitor in the ad tech space, and historically they have held a significant performance lead. They've been incredibly dominant in helping mobile developers maximize their ad revenue.
And switching ad networks requires significant effort from a developer. You have to integrate new software development kits, test the game, monitor the analytics. It's a headache.
It is a massive headache, but at the end of the day, these developers are running businesses. If AppLovin makes them more money, they will happily endure the hassle of switching. The new AI product doesn't just have to be good, it has to be flawless right out of the gate to keep those developers from fleeing.
And if the AI platform fails to scale and capture that developer loyalty, the revenue they lose by voluntarily shutting down the legacy ironSource network won't be replaced. The entire narrative of margin expansion would collapse instantly.
Exactly. And even if they execute this internal strategy perfectly, and the developers love the new platform, they are still a tech stock swimming in a very volatile ocean. The broader macroeconomic environment is a massive elephant in the room right now.
Oh, for sure. Looking back at March 2026, the NASDAQ 100 actually hit correction territory. Equities tumbled to 7-month lows.
The broader tech sector is facing serious liquidation pressure. And this is what we classify as a high beta turnaround story.
Let's define high beta for a second. Beta is basically a measure of how much a stock swings compared to the overall market. If the broader market drops by 1%, a high beta stock might drop by 2% or 3%. They are inherently more volatile and much more sensitive to broad sector panics.
Right. And when the broader market decides to sell off and investors rush to safety, they dump their risky high beta assets first. A company right in the middle of a complex, high-wire business model transition is never viewed as a safe haven. If the NASDAQ continues to face strong macroeconomic headwinds, it honestly doesn't matter how well Vector is performing internally. The stock could easily get dragged down by the sheer gravity of a market-wide tech liquidation.
So if you are balancing the incredibly powerful walled garden data advantage against the real threats of execution risk and market gravity, there have to be specific prove-it moments coming up. The market isn't just going to wait patiently for late 2026 to see if this works. Let's break that down even further. What are the immediate triggers we should be watching in the data over the next 30 days?
Well, there are 3 distinct events we're tracking that act as massive catalysts. First, April 30, 2026. This marks the official sunset of the Iron Source ads network.
The day they officially cut the cord on the low margin drag. We should see the mathematical reality of their margin improvements start taking shape immediately after that date.
Exactly. Second, we are looking at early May for the formal close of the China division sale. The day that ink dries, that $1 billion in cash hits the balance sheet, completely altering their capital allocation options for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that $1 billion is going to be a game changer.
It is, but the most critical date of all is May 6, 2026. That is their official first quarter earnings call.
Right, they released the preliminary beat, but May 6th is when they have to actually face the analysts and answer the hard questions.
Yep. The market is going to be hyper-focused on the second quarter guidance. They need to prove the momentum of Vector is actually accelerating and that the first quarter wasn't just a one-time structural bump.
And while we monitor those specific dates, the strategic pivot has sparked some pretty wild speculation in the M&A space, right?
Oh, definitely. By aggressively stripping away the bloated, commoditized parts of their business, the company is now a lean, highly profitable operation with a fortified balance sheet.
Yeah.
And currently, their market cap is sitting under $10 billion.
Which logically feeds the rumor mill. You have massive global giants like Microsoft or Sony aggressively trying to control the future of extended reality in the metaverse.
And this game engine is essentially the foundational architecture, the literal building blocks for creating these immersive virtual worlds. Their strategic positioning was recently validated by a deepened virtual reality alliance with Meta Platforms, too.
Right. They are proving to be indispensable infrastructure for the digital future. For a behemoth like Microsoft or Sony, acquiring the fundamental architecture of the next iteration of the internet for under $10 billion could be viewed as an absolute bargain over a 10-year horizon.
It's an unconfirmed narrative, obviously, but it certainly adds a fascinating layer of potential upside to the whole story.
It really does. So, stepping back and looking at the entire picture, what we have is a company that recognized its old growth at all costs model was a sinking ship. They are aggressively tossing the low-margin cargo overboard to become a streamlined, highly profitable AI utility. They are leveraging their unique position as a game engine to create an incredibly powerful ad targeting advantage, all backed by a billion-dollar cash infusion.
And, if we look beyond the immediate financial quarters, this transformation raises a truly provocative question.
What's that?
Well, if game engines become the ultimate closed environments for collecting incredibly detailed user behavioral data, doing it entirely within their own ecosystems to comply with strict new privacy laws, are companies like this positioning themselves to be the stealth data brokers of the next decade? Are they quietly building a system that completely bypasses the privacy restrictions currently strangling traditional social media networks?
Wow. That is a massive paradigm shift to think about. If you own the digital world the user is playing in, you hold all the keys to the data without ever needing to look outside. Really fascinating stuff. Keep your eyes locked on that May 6th earnings call, because that is when we find out if this newly built AI engine is truly ready for takeoff. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you on the next one.